The rain battered the streets of Philadelphia, each drop a tiny explosion against the pavement. But inside the courtroom, the silence was deafening. Eli Carter stood frozen, his knuckles white as he gripped the edge of the wooden table, staring at the judge's gavel as it hovered like a guillotine. His ex-wife, Mara, sat across the room, her face an unreadable mask, but her eyes burned with something he couldn't place: anger. Yes, but something deeper, something that made his stomach twist. 2 years ago, Eli had walked away from their marriage, not because he didn't love Mara, but because he couldn't lie to himself anymore. He was gay, and admitting it had cost him everything: his home, his stability, and, most painfully, his 2 children, Sophie and Lucas. The divorce had been brutal, but he'd fought for shared custody, clinging to the hope that he could still be their dad. Now, Mara was trying to take even that away, claiming he was unfit, unstable, a danger to their kids. The accusation stung like salt in an open wound. But what hurt more was the way Sophie and Lucas looked at him now, distant, confused, like he was a stranger. Eli's lawyer, a wiry man named Greg, leaned in. "She's got no case. Eli, stay calm." But calm was a luxury Eli couldn't afford. He glanced at his husband, Noah, seated in the back row, his warm brown eyes steady despite the tension. Noah's presence was the only thing keeping Eli grounded, a reminder that love could be a lifeline even in the darkest moments. They'd met a year after the divorce, at a support group for queer parents. Noah, with his quiet strength and disarming smile, had become Eli's everything: a partner, a confidant, a home. But Mara's latest move wasn't just about the kids. Eli could feel it. There was something personal, something vicious, in her relentless campaign to keep Sophie and Lucas away. The judge cleared her throat, her voice cutting through the room. "Mr. Carter, M.S. Bennett, this court is here to determine what's best for Sophie and Lucas. M.S. Bennett, you've made serious allegations. I expect evidence, not emotions." Mara's lawyer stood, adjusting his tie, and launched into a litany of claims: Eli's unstable lifestyle, his new relationship disrupting the children's lives, his supposed neglect. Each word was a dagger, twisting deeper. Eli wanted to scream that he'd never missed a school event, never forgotten a birthday, that he'd spent every waking moment trying to prove he was still their father. But he stayed silent, his jaw tight, because losing control now would only prove Mara right. As the hearing dragged on, Eli's mind wandered to the last time he'd seen Sophie and Lucas. It was 3 months ago, at a park near Mara's house. Sophie, 10, had clung to his hand, asking why he didn't live with them anymore. Lucas, 7, had kicked at the dirt, refusing to meet Eli's eyes. "Mom says you're different now," Sophie had whispered, her voice small but heavy with questions Eli wasn't ready to answer. He'd tried to explain, to tell them he was still the same dad who read them bedtime stories. But Mara had appeared, her voice sharp, ushering them away. That was the last time he'd held them, the last time he'd felt whole. The judge called a recess, and Eli stepped outside, the rain soaking his jacket as he leaned against the courthouse wall. Noah joined him, his hand finding Eli's, their fingers intertwining. "We'll get through this," Noah said, his voice low but firm. "She can't keep them from you forever." Eli wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at his heart. Mara wasn't just fighting for custody, she was fighting to erase him. And the worst part, he didn't know why. Back inside, Mara took the stand. Her voice was steady, almost rehearsed, as she described Eli's reckless choices and how they'd confused the kids. But then her eyes flicked to Noah, and for a split second, her composure cracked. It was subtly tightening of her lips, a flicker of something raw, but Eli saw it. And in that moment, He realized this wasn't just about him. It was about Noah. Mara's gaze lingered too long, too intensely, and Eli's heart sank. Was she jealous? Angry? Or was it something else entirely? The hearing ended with no decision. Just a promise of more hearings. More evidence. More pain. Eli and Noah drove home in silence, the city lights blurring through the rain-streaked windows. She's hiding something, Eli said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Noah nodded, his hand resting on Eli's knee. We'll figure it out. Together. But as they pulled into their driveway, Eli couldn't shake the feeling that Mara's secret was bigger than he'd ever imagined and that it could destroy everything he'd fought to build. The next morning, Eli woke to the smell of coffee and the soft hum of Noah in the kitchen. Their small apartment in South Philly was a haven. Walls lined with photos of their new life, together trips to the shore, quiet nights cooking dinner, moments that felt like promises. But today, those promises felt fragile. Eli sat at the kitchen table, staring at his phone, hoping for a message from Sophie or Lucas. Nothing. Just a text from Greg. Mara's team is pushing for a psych eval. Stay sharp. Noah slid a mug across the table, his fingers brushing Eli's. You didn't sleep, he said. Not a question, but a gentle observation. Eli sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. How can I? She's trying to paint me as some kind of monster. Noah's eyes softened, but before he could respond, the doorbell rang. It was Greg, his face grim as he handed Eli a folder. Mara's latest filing. She's claiming you're alienating the kids from her, turning them against her. Eli's stomach dropped. That's a lie. I've never said a word against her. Greg sat, his voice measured. She's building a narrative, Eli. And she's good at it. The court's already skeptical because of your situation. He hesitated, glancing at Noah. No offense, Noah, but your marriage doesn't help. Not in this judge's eyes. Noah's jaw tightened, but he stayed silent, his hand finding Eli's under the table. Eli felt a surge of gratitude, but it was drowned out by anger. Mara wasn't just attacking him, she was attacking their life together. That afternoon, Eli drove to Mara's neighborhood, a quiet suburb with picket fences and manicured lawns. He wasn't supposed to be there, but he needed to see his kids, even from a distance. He parked across from their school, watching as kids spilled out, laughing and shouting. Then he saw Sophie, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her face serious. Lucas trailed behind, kicking a pebble. Eli's heart ached to call out, to run to them, but he stayed put, knowing Mara's lawyers would twist it against him. As he watched, Mara's car pulled up. She stepped out, her auburn hair catching the sunlight, and hugged the kids tightly. But her eyes scanned the street, landing on Eli's car. For a moment, their gazes locked, and Eli saw it again, that flicker of something raw, something desperate. She ushered the kids into the car and drove off, but not before Eli noticed her linger, her hand resting on the car door, her shoulders tense. Back home, Eli paced the living room, his mind racing. She's not just angry, he told Noah, his voice shaking. It's like she's obsessed. Did you see how she looked at you in court? Noah frowned, setting down his book. What are you saying? Eli hesitated, the words feeling absurd even as they formed. I think she's fixated on you. Not me. You. Noah laughed, but it was hollow. That's crazy, Eli. She hates me. She blames me for your divorce. But Eli wasn't so sure. Mara's anger felt too personal, too pointed, like a wound she couldn't heal. That night, Eli couldn't sleep. He scrolled through old photos on his phone, him and Mara at their wedding, Sophie's first birthday, Lucas learning to ride a bike. He'd loved Mara once, fiercely, but it had been a love built on obligation, not truth. Coming out had been his liberation, but it had shattered her world. Was that why she was fighting so hard? Guilt gnawed at him, but so did suspicion. He opened his laptop and started digging, searching Mara's social media for clues. Most of her posts were private, but one caught his eye: a photo of her at a coffee shop, the same one Noah frequented. The caption was vague, finding peace in small moments. The date was recent. Too recent. Eli's pulse quickened. Was Mara following Noah? Stalking him? Or was it just a coincidence? He showed Noah, who shrugged it off. It's a popular spot. Doesn't mean anything. But Eli couldn't shake the feeling that Mara's campaign wasn't just about the kids. It was about his Noah. And if he was right, this fight was about to get uglier. Eli's suspicion grew like a weed, choking out his hope. He started noticing things: small, unsettling details. Mara's car parked near their apartment late at night. A cryptic email from an unknown account, mentioning Noah's favorite bookstore. Each discovery tightened the knot in Eli's chest. He didn't want to believe Mara was capable of something so unhinged, but the pieces were starting to fit. She wasn't just trying to keep the kids from him, she was unraveling. And Noah was at the center of it. One evening, Eli and Noah attended a fundraiser for a local LGBTQ center, a rare night out to escape the weight of the custody battle. The room buzzed with laughter and music, but Eli couldn't relax. He kept scanning the crowd, half expecting Mara to appear. Noah, sensing his tension, pulled him onto the dance floor. Forget her for one night, Noah whispered, his hands warm on Eli's waist. For a moment, Eli let himself melt into Noah's embrace, the world fading to just the two of them. But then he saw her, Mara, standing in the corner, her eyes locked on Noah. Eli froze, his heart pounding. She's here, he hissed, pulling Noah off the dance floor. Mara vanished into the crowd before they could confront her, but the damage was done. Eli's mind spiraled. Why was she there? Was she following them? Noah tried to calm him, insisting it was a coincidence, but Eli saw the doubt in his eyes. They left early, the night ruined, and drove home in tense silence. The next day, Eli hired a private investigator, a gruff woman named Carla who specialized in messy divorces. You think she's stalking your husband? Carla asked, her tone skeptical but curious. Eli nodded, handing over the folder of evidence he'd compiled: screenshots, timestamps, that coffee shop photo. Carla raised an eyebrow. This is thin, but I'll dig. If she's got a thing for your guy, we'll find it. While Carla worked, Eli focused on the kids. He wasn't allowed to see them, but he sent letters, drawings, anything to remind them he was still there. He wrote about the time they'd built a fort in the living room, how Sophie had declared herself queen and Lucas her loyal knight. He poured his heart into every word, hoping it would reach them. But Mara returned the letters unopened, each one a fresh cut. One night, Carla called. Got something, she said, her voice low. Mara's been visiting a therapist. I got a hold of some session notes and asked how. She's been talking about Noah. A lot. Not in a I hate him way, but obsessed. Like she's in love with him. Eli's blood ran cold. He thanked Carla and hung up, his hands shaking. Noah was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, oblivious to the storm brewing. Eli wanted to tell him, but the words stuck in his throat. How do you tell your husband your ex-wife is in love with him? Instead, Eli confronted Mara. He drove to her house, his heart pounding, and knocked on the door. She answered, her face pale, her eyes wary. What do you want, Eli? She asked, her voice sharp. Why are you doing this? He demanded. The kids, the lies, Following know what's wrong with you. Mara's expression faltered, and for a moment, she looked like the woman he'd once loved, vulnerable, lost. But then her walls went up. You're delusional, she snapped, slamming the door. Eli stood there, rain soaking his clothes, feeling more lost than ever. Mara wasn't just fighting for custody, she was fighting for something she could never have. And in her desperation, she was tearing their family apart. Eli's confrontation with Mara left him shaken, but it also lit a fire in him. He wasn't going to let her obsession destroy his family. He called Carla, asking her to dig deeper into Mara's actions, phone records, social media, anything that could prove she was crossing lines. Meanwhile, he and Noah tried to keep their lives normal, but the strain was palpable. Noah stopped going to his favorite coffee shop, avoided the bookstore, even changed his running route. I feel like I'm hiding, he admitted one night, his voice heavy with frustration. Eli hated seeing him like this, caged by Mara's shadow. Carla's next report was a bombshell. Mara had been emailing Noah's colleagues, posing as a concerned friend, asking about his schedule. She'd even joined a community group Noah volunteered with, attending meetings under a false name. She's not just infatuated, Carla said. She's methodical. This isn't a crush, it's an obsession. Eli felt sick. He showed Noah the evidence, watching his husband's face shift from disbelief to anger. She's been in my life this whole time, Noah asked, his voice breaking. How did I not see it? Eli didn't have answers. He only knew they had to protect themselves and the kids. He reached out to Greg, who filed for a restraining order against Mara, citing her stalking behavior. It was a risky move. The court might see it as retaliation, but Eli couldn't let her get closer. The hearing for the restraining order was set for the same week as the next custody hearing, piling pressure on an already fragile situation. One afternoon, Eli got a call from Sophie's school. His heart leapt, thinking it was about his daughter, but it was the principal. Sophie's been acting out, she said. Fighting, withdrawing. She says she misses her dad. Eli's throat tightened. Can I see her? He asked, desperate. The principal hesitated. Mara's instructed us not to let you near her, but I'll arrange a supervised visit. Off the record. Eli nearly wept with relief. The visit was brief, in a small room at the school. Sophie ran to him, her arms wrapping around his waist. Why can't you come home? She sobbed. Lucas sat quietly, his eyes downcast, but he let Eli hug him. I'm trying, kiddo, Eli said, his voice cracking. I love you both so much. He didn't mention Mara, didn't want to poison their minds. But Sophie's next words stopped him cold. Mom cries all the time. She talks about Noah. Says he's why you left. Eli's heart sank. Mara wasn't just hurting him, she was dragging the kids into her pain. Back home, Eli told Noah everything. They sat on the couch, the weight of Sophie's words hanging between them. She's using the kids to get to me, Noah said, his voice low. She thinks if she keeps them from you, she can. What? Win me over? Eli nodded, the truth too ugly to ignore. They decided to confront Mara together, not in anger, but to find a way forward. They needed her to see the damage she was causing. They arranged a meeting at a neutral Spoda park near the school. Mara arrived alone, her face guarded but her eyes red-rimmed. What do you want? She asked, her voice brittle. Eli took a deep breath. Mara, we know. About Noah. About everything. Her face crumpled, and for the first time, Eli saw not the enemy, but a woman broken by her own heart. Mara's silence in the park spoke louder than words. Her shoulders slumped, her hands trembling as she avoided Eli's gaze. Noah stood beside him, his presence steady but tense. Mara, Eli said softly. You're hurting the kids. You're hurting yourself. This has to stop. Her eyes flicked to Noah, and for a moment, Eli thought she might run. Instead, she whispered, You don't understand. Then help us understand, Noah said, his voice gentle but firm. Mara's lips parted, but no words came. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely audible. I loved you, Eli. And when you left, I thought it was my fault. Then I saw you with him. She looked at Noah, her eyes glistening. You were so alive. Happy. I wanted that. I wanted him. The confession hung in the air, raw and jagged. Eli felt a pang of pity, but also anger. She'd turned her pain into a weapon, and his kids were collateral damage. They left the park with no resolution, just Mara's promise to think about it. Eli wasn't hopeful, but it was a start. Back home, he and Noah talked late into the night, grappling with the weight of Mara's feelings. She's not a villain, Noah said, his voice heavy. She's just lost. Eli nodded, but he couldn't forgive her not yet. Not when Sophie and Lucas were still out of reach. The restraining order hearing came first. Eli and Noah sat in the courtroom, their hands clasped, as Carla presented evidence of Mara's stalking mails, photos, even security footage of her near their apartment. Mara's lawyer argued it was circumstantial, that she was just a concerned mother. But the judge wasn't convinced. Ms. Bennett, she said, your actions suggest an unhealthy fixation. I'm granting a temporary restraining order. Stay away from Mr. Carter and Mr. Thompson. Mara's face was stone, but her eyes betrayed her fear, shame, and something like relief. The custody hearing followed, and it was brutal. Mara's lawyer painted Eli as an absent father, using his coming out as proof of instability. Eli's heart broke as Sophie and Lucas were brought in to testify. Sophie's voice trembled as she said, I just want to see Dad more. Lucas, quieter, added, Mom says he's busy, but I know he's not. The judge's expression softened, and Eli dared to hope. But Mara's testimony was a gut punch. She admitted to keeping the kids away, but claimed it was to protect them from Eli's choices. The lie stung, but Eli stayed silent, trusting Greg to fight for him. Afterward, Eli and Noah went to a diner, too drained to cook. Over greasy burgers, Noah reached for Eli's hand. We're closer, he said. The judge seized through her. Eli nodded, but his mind was on Mara's confession in the park. She loved Noah, thought she did, and that love was tearing their family apart. He wondered if she'd ever let go, or if this fight would define their lives forever. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal battles and sleepless nights. The judge ordered a temporary custody arrangement, allowing Eli supervised visits with Sophie and Lucas. It wasn't enough, but it was something. Eli cherished every moment treating to Lucas, helping Sophie with her science project. But Mara's shadow loomed. She complied with the restraining order, but her absence felt like a storm gathering strength. One evening, Eli found a letter slipped under their apartment door. No name, no address, just a single sheet of paper. I'm sorry, it read. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Eli's heart raced. It was Mara's handwriting. He showed it to Noah, who frowned. She's reaching out. But why now? They debated calling Carla, but Eli wanted to believe Mara was trying to make amends. Against Noah's advice, he texted her, asking to meet again. They met at a coffee shop, neutral ground. Mara looked exhausted, her eyes hollow. I've been seeing a new therapist, she said, her voice low. I know I've been wrong. About you. About Noah. She paused, twisting her wedding ring still on her finger, years after the divorce. I thought if I could make you the bad guy, I'd feel better. But it's not working. Eli listened, his anger softening but not gone. You kept my kids from me, he said. That's not something I can just forgive. Mara nodded, tears falling. I know. I'm trying to fix it. She promised to stop fighting the custody arrangement, to let Eli see the kids freely. It sounded too good to be true, and Eli was wary. But when he saw Sophie and Lucas the next day, they were different, lighter, like a weight had lifted. Mom said we can see you more, Sophie said, her smile tentative but real. Eli hugged them both, his heart swelling, but doubt lingered. Could Mara really let go of her feelings for Noah? Carla called with an update. She's backed off, she said. No more weird emails. No more showing up where she shouldn't. But keep your guard up. Eli thanked her, but the unease remained. Mara's apology felt genuine, but her obsession had run deep. He and Noah doubled down on their routine, focusing on the kids and their life together, hoping the worst was over. Then, one night, Noah got a text from an unknown number. Meet me. Please. I need to explain. It was Mara. Noah showed Eli, his face pale. I'm not going, he said. But she's not giving up. Eli's stomach churned. Mara was trying to pull Noah back into her orbit, and he feared what she might do if she couldn't. Eli and Noah decided to ignore Mara's text, but it hung over them like a dark cloud. The custody battle was nearing its end, with the judge leaning toward shared custody. Eli could taste victory, but Mara's unpredictability kept him on edge. He started documenting everything: texts, letters, even the kids' comments about their mom. If Mara was planning something, he'd be ready. One afternoon, Sophie called, her voice shaky. Dad, Mom's acting weird. She's crying again, talking about Noah. Eli's heart sank. He drove to Mara's house, breaking the restraining order but too worried to care. When he arrived, Mara was in the backyard, sitting on a swing, staring at nothing. The kids were inside, watching TV, oblivious to her state. Mara, Eli said, keeping his distance. What's going on? She looked up, her face streaked with tears. I can't stop, she whispered. I see him everywhere. In my dreams. In my head. Eli felt a chill. This wasn't just Lovey, it was an obsession that had consumed her. He called her therapist, who agreed to meet Mara that evening. Eli stayed until the kids were safe with a neighbor, then drove home, his mind racing. He told Noah everything, and they agreed Mara needed help, not punishment. They contacted Greg, who arranged for a court-appointed mediator to assess Mara's mental health. The mediator's report was damning. Mara was struggling with untreated depression and an unhealthy fixation on Noah. The judge ordered her to undergo therapy and temporarily granted Eli full custody, with Mara allowed supervised visits. It was a bittersweet victory. Eli wanted his kids, but not like this, not at the cost of Mara's breakdown. He and Noah took Sophie and Lucas to their apartment, setting up their rooms with familiar toys and books. The kids were quiet, processing the change, but they clung to Eli, their trust in him unbroken. One night, as Eli tucked them in, Lucas asked, "Is Mom okay?" Eli hesitated, then said, "She's trying to get better. We'll help her." "Okay." Lucas nodded, and Sophie hugged Eli tightly. "I'm glad you're here, Dad." For the first time in months, Eli felt like he could breathe. But Mara's shadow lingered. She was complying with therapy, but her texts to Noah continued apologies. Please. Promises to change. Noah blocked her number, but Eli knew it wasn't over. Mara's love for Noah had warped into something dangerous, and Eli feared what she might do to reclaim it. The final custody hearing was a quiet affair, a stark contrast to the chaos that had defined the past year. The judge granted Eli and Mara shared custody. With strict conditions, Mara had to continue therapy, and any contact with Noah was forbidden. Eli felt a weight lift, but it was tempered by sorrow. Mara sat across the courtroom, her face pale but composed, a shadow of the woman he'd once known. She'd lost so much: her marriage, her stability, her connection to the kids. But so had Eli, and he couldn't let pity cloud his resolve. Life with Sophie and Lucas settled into a new rhythm. They spent half the week with Eli and Noah, their laughter filling the apartment. Noah taught Lucas to play chess, while Sophie painted with Eli, her creativity blooming. But Mara's presence lingered in small ways: her letters to the kids, carefully vetted by the mediator, her quiet apologies during pickups. She was trying, but Eli couldn't fully trust her. One evening, Mara asked to meet Eli alone. Against his better judgment, he agreed, choosing a public park. She looked healthier, her eyes clearer, but there was still a fragility to her. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice steady. "For everything. I loved Noah because he had what I lost: you. Your light, your heart. I thought I could take it back." Eli listened, his anger fading into something softer. "You can't take back what's gone," he said. "But you can be there for Sophie and Lucas. They need you." Mara nodded, tears falling. "I'm trying. I promise." She handed him a letter for the kids, sealed, with a note asking him to read it first. It was simple, full of love and regret, promising to be the mother they deserved. Eli believed her, not fully, but enough to hope. Months later, the family found a fragile balance. Mara's therapy helped, and her visits with the kids grew warmer, less strained. Eli and Noah rebuilt their lives, their love stronger for surviving the storm. One night, as they watched Sophie and Lucas play in the park, Noah took Eli's hand. "We made it," he whispered. Eli smiled, his heart full. They'd fought for their family, for their love, and they'd won, not just against Mara, but against the pain that had tried to break them. The rain had stopped, and the sky was clear. Eli looked at his kids, at Noah, and knew that whatever came next, they'd face it together. Love wasn't perfect, but it was enough.